Welcome in to the Lady Vol Basketball Fever podcast, part of Vol Basketball Fever. We're a show dedicated exclusively to talking about the Lady Vols and news around the program. Tune in to hear thoughts and discussions from experts who cover the Lady Vols on a daily basis. Now, here's a new episode of the Lady Vol Basketball Fever podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome in to another episode of the Lady Vol Basketball Fever podcast. I am Nathanael Rutherford, joined by a special guest here again on the show. Thank you so much, Maria Cornelius of 247 Sports, of GoVols247, for joining me on the show. Really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. It's good to see you again. It has been, I've got one eye on my computer, everything coming in. It has, as you know, has been a significant basketball news day with everything going on right now.
Yeah, we'll try not to keep you too long because, as you said, it's busy. Not just because we have the NCAA Tournament, but the Lady Vols also, as of us recording this on Thursday, got a huge commitment from another transfer, which we'll get to in just a second. Tennessee's second transfer in the last month, I guess, here for the Lady Vols. We'll get to that in just a second. Again, I want to thank all of you all for tuning in here, on whether it's on YouTube or it's on the podcast. Thank you all so much for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel by clicking the button down below, or if you're listening to this on a podcast, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, you name it, we're there. Give this video a like on YouTube, and please share it around and let other Lady Vol fans know about the Lady Vol Basketball Fever, which we try to do every single week, one episode per week. But Maria, as you had just mentioned, it's a busy time, and we have a lot of good news to talk about for Lady Vols. We have the fact that the Lady Vols are in the Sweet 16 for the first time in 6 years. I mean, I can't believe it's been 6 years. But finally, they break that second weekend drought. Cora Hall of Knox News and I talked about that last episode. If you all want to go back and check that out, we talked about, can the Lady Vols finally break that second weekend drought and hosting the first couple rounds. I said would be probably huge for that, and it was, because Maria, they needed some home court advantage and needed some of that kind of home court feel, especially in the second round. The game against Buffalo was tight for a while, but the Lady Vols were able to kind of pull away late. Against Belmont, there was no pulling away late. You had the fight, tooth, claw, and nail, and everything in that game to win that one. And of course, you had the late game heroics of Sarah Puckett nailing that corner three. And of course, she deserves a lot of credit. But obviously, to me, the biggest credit, aside from that, goes to Snoop, goes to Alexus Dye, because she has been phenomenal. Alexus Dye in March is just a completely different animal. She's been phenomenal for Lady Vols, and it was really the heart and soul of that win over Belmont. So I kind of want to recap the first couple of rounds before we move on to Louisville. But Maria, we're here in the Sweet 16. That's what the goal, I think, of for this team. My goal was for this team was to get there because of all the injuries and the attrition they've faced this year. I thought it would be an accomplishment for this specific roster without Jordan Horston, especially, and without just Marta Suarez and without Kean Green, to make it here, to break that streak, to show progress. And they've done it. And now they got a chance to move on, maybe even more. We'll get in that second, but I just want to talk, ask your opinion on the first couple games and really the kind of the resolve that Lady Vols showed against some really good double-digit seeds.
When that bracket rolled in last Sunday night, and Patches has been quiet all day, and here she goes. When that bracket rolled in and I saw Buffalo come in, I'm like, wow, that is a tough – Buffalo's a well-coached team and a tough team. And I said, all right, that's not going to be a typical first-round game. Mm-hmm. And then I saw Belmont and Oregon, and when we did brackets that we had to pick for CBS Sports, 247 Sports, I actually picked Belmont to beat Oregon because I knew how well they could shoot three-pointers. And if you can make a boatload of three-pointers, they made 12 of them against Oregon, you can sneak a win against a team that was 6'4", 6'5", 6'7" across their front line. Mm-hmm. So I was not surprised Belmont got to Monday. And as you pointed out, Tennessee was doing that. I needed that home court advantage. I mean, that crowd was insanely loud. The numbers weren't that high. They listed it, I think, about 5,000. It sounded twice as loud. Mm-hmm. And I mean, props to Belmont. My goodness, what a tremendous effort they showed. They showed the women's basketball, and people who follow basketball understand. I mean, look what happened to Iowa on its home court.
Yep.
And look what happened to LSU on its home court. And Miami gave UConn everything it could deal with. South Carolina, that game was 31-18 against Miami in the fourth quarter. It's not the old days of the 90s and the early 2000s where those first two games at home, I mean, that especially that first one, I mean, you were going to win by 30 and set up hopefully something that could challenge you in the second round, and then off you'd go to the Sweet 16. But Tennessee earned this one, and I think this one is particularly special considering the injuries, the loss of Keon Green, then the loss of Jordan Horston, the fact that Ray Burrell is still not back to the Ray Burrell that people saw last season. She has gamely tried to go on, but she is not, that explosiveness that she had is not quite back yet. I think it would have been a very long offseason had Tennessee lost that game, because that's a long time to what if that game, particularly when you led by 14 in the second half. And I had said earlier, there's no pressure on Belmont. Absolutely none. No one expects you to win. Go out there and play loose, go compete. And that's what their coach told them at halftime. If they beat us, they beat us. But go compete. Don't be scared of them. Go right at them. And basketball being the sport that it is, they did. And Tennessee suddenly had struggled to hit a shot until, of course, Sarah Puckett unloaded with 17.8 seconds left. So it was a fun early rounds. If you like women's basketball, I mean, there were a lot of fun games to watch, a lot of close games to watch, a lot of upsets. I'm pretty sure everybody's bracket got blown to bits by that first weekend.
Yeah, I did a women's bracket, I think, for the second time the last 3 years, and I was like, I don't feel super confident in my picks, but I'm gonna try it because this is the most I'd watched women's basketball in a while. So I was like, I've watched more this year than I ever have, so maybe I can do well. And then I looked at my bracket the other day, and I was like, yeah, maybe not. But like you said, that wasn't just me. I feel like that's been kind of, I mean, there's been a lot what Cora and I talked about last week, that the mid-major teams and kind of the double-digit seeds in this year's tournament especially, it just seems like year in and year out now, the mid-majors and those double-digit seeds have gotten better and better. I mean, to me, the Florida Gulf Coast pick was one of the easiest picks I made, because I thought they were, just from what I'd seen on them on paper and what I talked about with Cora, like they seemed like one of the most massively underseeded teams I'd seen. So you're right, like it's been a really, really fun. I'm glad that the NCAA finally is letting the women's game use the March Madness moniker, because it's been like the last few years especially have been March Madness for women's sport and women's basketball. And this year is really more so than any year in the last few years I can remember. It's been very fun and very crazy to watch some of these games.
I won't go into seeding too much because it's said and done, but on the men's and women's side, whatever formula they're using, whatever decisions they're making, it's not working. It's not working. It needs to be overhauled. Florida Gulf Coast deserved a much better seed. Heck, Buffalo deserved a better seed. And I don't know in what scenario you send Oregon all the way over to Tennessee for a first round game. There's got to be a better way than that.
Yeah,
that was wholly unfair to Oregon to send them all the way to Tennessee for a first round game. That made no sense to me.
Yeah, I feel bad for Oregon. They got that, like you said, that surely there's a better way to handle that. But before I guess now we'll kind of move on a little bit to the Sweet 16. But I guess kind of before that and leading into it, I had mentioned Alexus Dye, and I want to give credit. Cora had brought it up last week too about Alexus Dye in March, and I mean, I'm literally looking at her stats, and her last 4 games, they've all been in March. Looking back to the SEC tournament too, she's had a double-double in her last 4 games. And again, all 4 of them have been in March. 16-14, 26-10, 18-11, 20-11. I mean, she has hit an extra gear when she's gotten into March. And for this team, and that's been a huge plus and a huge X factor for this team, because they've needed someone like that to step up. Tennessee has played better when Alexus Dye has been good. And I think it's been great to see, because you've had Tamari Key I think zeroed in more on by opponents. And Tamari still had some good games, don't get me wrong. She's still been playing well, and I've liked the fact that she's been able to fight through some of the we'll say aggressive defense, for put it nicely, against her lately, especially.
She's been held a little bit out there.
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit. But Alexis has been, I mean, her, again, it shouldn't surprise people who've paid attention to women's basketball the last few years because of what she did at Troy in the tournament time as well. But I mean, she has just exploded here in these last 4 games. And I think, if Jordan Horston isn't available for Louisville and if Lady Vols make it to the Elite Eight, which we'll talk about in a second, it's even more imperative that Alexus Dye goes out and has, another, double-double type performance because she's filling that gap of the double-double machine that Jordan Horston was.
I agree. And she's only begun to tap into her potential as a basketball player. I mean, she didn't start playing until 8th grade. Mm-hmm. She went to Gulf Coast. I just forgot the complete. I'm sorry, Alexis. I just completely Gulf State. It's not Gulf. I got to look it up now.
I'm looking it up too.
It was a JUCO right? School. I mean, I love Rooney Scovel, coach there, longtime friend of Lady Vols. They've known her for a long time. I don't want to mess up because that's a national championship winning.
Yeah, it was Gulf Coast State.
Yes, that's a national championship winning program. Then obviously at Troy had success there, but she has always, I mean, her athleticism, her ability to jump, her leaping ability is off the charts. How quickly she can release her shot. She is just now putting together the pieces to become a basketball player. Her ceiling, she hasn't even gotten close. The WNBA is so hard to make a roster. There are so few spots, so many talented players. I mean, players are coming back, veteran players are coming from overseas. But I would think she could at least get in a training camp, and if not, not make a roster out of that, get overseas and work her way back into it. She just needs some more time on the court, some more seasoning, some more. I mean, she's a 5-tool player. She's got all the tools right now and just durable. I'm not aware of her ever missing a game. I mean, just a durable player and delightful personality. I mean, people really like her, which is always good too. Coachable. And I wish she had another year at Tennessee, but this is it for her because I would love to see Alexus Dye, not just this outstanding double-double machine that she is right now. I would love to see her evolve as a basketball player. And I really do think the better days for her as a basketball player are ahead of her. She's got that much potential.
Yeah, and we've already watched her evolve, at Tennessee just within this year because, I mean, she came in from Troy as being an undersized, like, I guess maybe not in their league, but being an undersized post that was, generally just in the post. And she's been in the post a lot for Tennessee, but she's really improved her mid-range game. And like you said, she's done a really good job of, one of the reasons she's brought in was to crash the boards and be really aggressive on the boards. And she's done that exceptionally well all year. That's been the one thing that I don't think has been consistent for her all year. When the scoring hasn't been there, when she's gotten in foul trouble, the thing that's still always been there for her has been her rebounding. And she's done a really good job of that, averaging, most time all year, just about 7 rebounds a game, pretty much the whole season. So again, mentioned that I think she will be the X factor for the Lady Vols as they move into the Sweet 16 this weekend. Maria will have Tennessee and Louisville on ESPN2 on Saturday at 4:00 Eastern over in Wichita, Kansas. This is a game that I figured it'd be Tennessee and Louisville in the Sweet 16. That's what I projected and picked and hoped, especially for Tennessee, that they would get there. And then I figured Louisville would be who they'd face. But of course, looking at the seeding or looking at the bracket and stuff like that, this is technically, the weakest 1 seed. And I do agree. I think they are the weakest 1 seed. Louisville has a penchant for having really bad second halves and really bad fourth quarters. This is a team that is beatable. This is a team that I think the Lady Vols, if they were fully healthy, I think would beat. Unfortunately, the Lady Vols aren't fully healthy. Before we dive into the game, though, I have to ask because it's the big question. I know it hasn't been, there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about it. I did see the video and pictures and stuff of the Lady Vols going to Wichita, and of course, Jordan Horston going with the team, bringing her caution sign as she does. But Maria, is there any sort of update on anything like that about Jordan Horston and her availability for this game?
Yeah, Kelly met with the media this morning before the team departed. Took the bus to the airport to fly out to Wichita, and she does not anticipate at all her being available Saturday. Okay. She has done a remarkable job of healing, but the calendar still continues. I mean, we all do remember she fractured and dislocated her elbow, and it's been 5 weeks. I think she has healed wonderfully well. You can see videos of her swinging her arm around. I mean, she there's a picture of her picking up Jackson after the second round win. But in terms of actually being able to do that and being cleared for contact in a contact sport, which basketball very much is a contact sport, she is not there yet. So does that mean that if they were to be able to get to an Elite Eight, that she could possibly be available then? It's always a possibility if they were to get to a Final Four. I mean, Tennessee can beat anybody left in the field. They really can. I mean, then the likelihood of her playing increases even more. But I would not anticipate at all seeing her Saturday. She is not cleared to practice, and we're talking, and it's already Thursday. So,
right. Well, that's what I figured. It's unfortunate, but it's what I figured. So let's, with that in mind, again, we've not seen Jordan Horston for several weeks at this point. So again, Lady Vol fans aren't expecting her to be back. So let's look ahead to this game against Louisville, because I think it's very winnable, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and doesn't mean I expect the Lady Vols to win, because it's going to be tough. You have a Louisville team that has a trio of really, really good 3-point shooting players. You have Van Lith, you have Smith, and you have Ingsler, who are all shooting, I think, around 38% from three this year. All three of those players averaging in double figures and scoring, 14, 11.9, 11.7. Then you also have Ingsler, who's averaging almost a double-double with basically 12 points and 9 boards a game. So this is a team that is very dangerous. But again, it's a team that we saw go one and done in the ACC tournament, where they lost 61-59 to Miami. It's a team that only has 4 losses on the year, but they've had some head-scratching performances, I would say. Some games where you're thinking they're kind of lucky they didn't lose in some of the games they played this year. So they're deserving of being one of the top 1 or 2 seeds in terms of being a 1 seed or 2 seed. But they are a team that is beatable, and a team that I don't necessarily, I guess, like the way the Lady Vols match up with them, but I don't hate it. There are teams that Lady Vols would match up worse against in this situation, because I look at the size of them. They have some decent size, but they're not a team that's going to overwhelm you with their size. But they're a very good team. You know them better than I do, Maria. So I'll let you kind of dive into it more. But this is a team that I think Tennessee could win. I don't know though that that I'm going to pick it, but it's going to be, I think, an interesting and fun game.
Your scouting report was actually excellent. I mean, Haley Van Lith, I mean, she's a scoring machine. I mean, I think she had 21 points in the last game. She is somebody who can shoot her team into a win. You mentioned the other 3-point shooters. They're a guard lineup, and Miami, I think you mentioned that they lost in the first round. Jeff Wass took the blame for that loss. He basically, because it's a tournament format without the day in between, he basically, in the fourth quarter, sort of pulled the starters trying to save some legs. Lead was about 15, and it's not enough in this game anymore. About a 25-point lead, you could start to relax. But the way people shoot threes, and
yeah, I
mean, look at Miami. I mean, Miami could not. South Carolina's defense is very, very good, and Miami could not score. But at the same time, it was 31-18 in the fourth quarter. So clearly Miami was a team that very capable of beating, or at least hanging with top teams. And so Jeff took the blame for that. He said, that's coaching error. And that's not something you're going to repeat ever, particularly when it's one and season done.
Right. Yeah.
Olivia Cochran is probably the X factor for them, but she's they're forward. So she's going to have to, she'll be called on to handle Tamari Key, and also it's going to be a challenge for Tamari Key. She's going to have to guard her in different spots on the floor. So it'll be a game in which both teams will probably want to get to their bench to save. I mean, it could be a game that both teams would be happy to run an accelerated pace and get it moving. I mean, the good thing about, like I said, Tennessee, all the pressure was on Tennessee at home against Belmont. Not only are you at home, you haven't been to a Sweet 16 in 6 years. Now, one of those was a pandemic year, so technically It's been 5, but it's over the calendar, it's 6. And it's Belmont. It's not like a Buffalo or a team somewhere else in the United States. It is a team right down the road, 3 hours down the road from from Knoxville.
Yep.
So that was what, if you ever wanted to have a must-win game, that was it for Tennessee. Now they go in clearly, roster hits, 4 seed, Louisville's the 1 seed. They don't go in as anybody's favorite. They go in as the underdog. And sometimes you can relax a little more when you're not expected to win, or you could even make that, you could turn it into feeling like you're being disrespected. Whatever a team needs to do to get itself motivated, whatever they need to do. So I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be interesting to watch. I think it'll be fun to watch. All these games have been fun to watch. I'm trying to look at the minutes played. They're like Tennessee, Haley Van Liv. I'm looking at the last game. Obviously, they beat Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a very good team. They beat, as a 1 seed, they got Albany in the first round, and that wasn't, but Albany is actually a pretty solid program, but that is it's tough to be a 16 and go into the home team's home court.
Yep.
Look at it. Olivia Cochran played 24 minutes, so they also bring some forward help off the bench. Haley Van Liff went 37. So it'll be a team where, players are going to have to log some heavy minutes. The one thing Kelly has shown she will do all season is play her bench. When I looked up in the first quarter against Belmont, and she has all 4 freshmen and sophomore Tess Darby on the floor, and they not only held their own, they extended the lead like 4 or 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Kelly, a lot of times some of us in the media are sometimes questioning some of her rotations because it's what we do. We think we actually know how to coach. We wonder who's starting or who's the rotation. And it's always a reminder. I tell people that, the coach does see them every day in practice, in meetings, at film. She probably has a better idea of what she wants from her team. But Kelly has shown a willingness that she got here to go deep into her roster and to play her roster. And she'll do it early in games. So and the good thing is that none of these freshmen are going in there feeling like they don't have experience. They've earned some of them a lot in the regular season, but then even Kaya Wynn and Caroline Strickland hit the rotation in postseason. So, and then Sarah Puckett. I do want to say that as impressive as the shot was, and it was an impressive shot, and when it left her hand, I said, that's going in. It was a perfect shot. The form was beautiful. I'm like, oh my, that is going in. But she also was willing to take the shot. And that is what is unusual, particularly for a freshman. Will you take that shot in that big moment? And she was willing to do it. So that says even more about Sarah Puckett than the shot going in, is her willingness to take it. Because, you hit 38, 40% of your threes, you're an outstanding 3-point shooter. That means 60% of the time you fail. And you have to be, it's like baseball. A 300 hitter is Hall of Fame. So I do admire Sarah Puckett, and they ran that play to perfection in terms of finding the open player. Credit to Ray Burrell. She was doubled. She didn't have a clean look. And Belmont even said we had to protect the paint. You got Tamari Key and Alexus Dye in there. The general thinking had to be, and that was one of the options, was to get the ball inside, tie up the game. Another option was go for the 3, go for the go-ahead bucket. And they ran it. Alexus Dye set the screen. Jordan Walker got the ball to Ray. Alexus Dye set the screen. They converged on Ray. Ray turned and put the pass right where, right where the shooter wants it, not too high, not too low. So it was, all of my animals are in here now. My goodness. Okay.
Well, Maria, you'd mentioned that, I'm glad you brought up the freshmen, because that was kind of the next question next thing I was going to go to before we talk about some off-court stuff, or I guess technically off-court stuff for Lady Vols. And that was the fact that, you mentioned that lineup, where it's basically the youngest lineup Tennessee could be playing, with 4 freshmen and sophomore Tess Darby out there. But I think you made a good point that, I saw people even on Twitter saying, when the freshmen were coming in, they're like, I kind of almost feel a little better about this game when the freshmen are in there. And I think that's very telling, because I look at Brooklyn Miles and her tenacity on defense, and just her way she can zip up and down the court. And I love her speed and what she, her potential of what she can turn into, what she already is, but the players she can turn into, down the line for Tennessee. But I think these freshmen, we have seen the Lady Vols again go 8-9 deep because they are not afraid, as you mentioned, because Harper not afraid to play her freshmen, and I think this is a game where you're going to have to play them, and I'm intrigued to see kind of the minutes that Sarah Puckett or a Brooklyn Miles get in this game, because you said Louisville has some size, but they're really they're especially their scoring is a lot more guard oriented overall. So this is a game where I expect to see maybe a little bit more of a Brooklyn Miles because of the way she plays defense and the way she's able to affect things defensively. So I am kind of curious your take on, you said this is a game where you're probably gonna have to log a lot of minutes. And again, looking at just the second round, Sarah played 24, Brooklyn played 13, Kaya played 12, and Caroline only played 3, but she played 3 minutes that were, I think key. And she's also, again, has played, her minutes have gone up here in the last, I guess, really almost a month of gameplay here for Lady Vols. So I think you're spot on. I think the freshmen are going to play some pivotal moments and some pivotal minutes against Louisville here on Saturday.
They have to. I mean, right now Striplin's coming in to give Tamari a break, and she needs that. Puckett, she's played some longer minutes at times. Brooklyn, with the way she can pressure the ball and will get moving. I mean, she just like you said, she's tenacious. She elevates her intensity. And then Kaya is a big guard. I mean, she's a 6-foot guard that can bother shooters where you have to limit, particularly with 4 of them. And, Kelly, we're not talking like Kelly played them like 7 minutes. I mean, the hardest part for freshmen is defense. And you could see a little bit of slippage. They did really well. I've seen much greater slippage in earlier games where all of the screening and the switches and that is a lot for a freshman to take in. And Belmont was attacking them a bit in the paint because they knew because it's really hard to attack those guards on the perimeter. And Belmont had some experienced players, and you can lose freshmen on multiple switches and screens because do they go under it? Do they go over it? And you have to talk on defense, and freshmen don't always talk on defense, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know what to say. So I was pleasantly surprised by that stretch and how they handled it because they didn't surrender the lead. They actually extended it, I think, 4 points. So kudos to them. I'm not sure in a Sweet 16 game you're going to see 4 freshmen and a sophomore all on the floor at the same time. I don't know. I mean, Kelly can make that call, but the further you get in this tournament, obviously, to have survived. For these 16 teams, they are doing something right and really well because they got here. And a lot of top teams that we expected to be here. I mean, Iowa was a favorite for the Final Four. Baylor was a contender for a national championship. They're done. Yep. And that is a surprise. And not only a surprise, but to lose in Iowa City and to lose in Waco.
Yeah, right.
And Tennessee certainly knows that. Had Tennessee lost in Knoxville, I mean, the narrative, it would have been exhausting. I mean, I thank you, Sarah Puckett, for making everyone's offseason a bit more pleasant. Because Tennessee beating Louisville would be incredible and fans would love it. But if you lose to a 1 seed, as long as you played well and played hard and gave it everything you had, fans can live with that kind of outcome, knowing what Kelly has lost in terms of injuries. So if you can beat them, I mean, like Kelly said, just get there, get to the game, and let's see what happens. And we already know Kelly can coach. I have said repeatedly, this roster with these hits and a lesser coach would have been about 8 or 9 in the SEC and would have had about 12, 14 losses. So she has established how well she can coach. She is also one of only 2 coaches to now take 4 teams. Well, she did it, obviously, when she took them last year. 4 teams to the NCAA tournament. Jim Foster was the other one. Kelly's done it at Western Carolina, NC State, Missouri State, and now Tennessee. And she's now taken 2 teams to the Sweet 16 in Missouri State and now Tennessee.
Which is, like you said, highly impressive. You don't do that if you're a bad coach.
No. She has the X's and O's and the understanding of the game. She has a very mathematical mind, and she's very big on numbers and matchups. Whenever you hear her talk about a team, she doesn't so much scout the team. She'll give an overview, but she goes, everything about postseason is matchups. How do we match up with this team? And you've got to hope for some beneficial matchups in your favor that you can use to your favor. And you got to deal with the places where you don't match up so well.
I absolutely agree with you on that one. I'm a big fan of Kelly Harper, so you won't hear much negativity that isn't earned, at least from me about her. So, but before we get you out of here, Maria, I know again, don't want to keep you too long, but we gotta talk about the other big news for the Lady Vols. Like, they got to win on Thursday without even being on the court, and that was in landing Mississippi State transfer forward Rickea Jackson. We had talked about her, I think, last time you and I were on, that you came on the podcast here for the Lady Vol Basketball Fever. Because we were talking about the transfers that have visited. I think last time we talked was even before Jazz Powell had announced her commitment to Tennessee. So we had Jazz Powell who committed. I think she's going to be a huge piece. But I think we talked about it because you talked about how Jordan Walker was could play off ball now more. So right. So we talked about that some. But with Rickea Jackson, I mean, she is a huge addition. 6'2" junior from Detroit. Again, another Michigan player, another Detroit area player for the Lady Vols there with now Walker and Jazz. But played in 15 games for State this year and averaged 35 minutes, averaged 20.3 points, 6.8 rebounds, about an assist a game as well. Shot 41% overall and 73% from the free throw line in 67 games for Mississippi State, 57 of those being starts. She averaged 16.2 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 1.4 assists, as well as shooting 44.4% overall, and not too bad from three. She did a ton of threes, but she shoots around 30% from three as well. Maria, this is a huge transfer addition for the Lady Vols in a lot of different ways. But I know Lady Vol fans value your take and your opinion on players and kind of how they fit into the roster and stuff. So I would love to hear your opinion on what this means for the roster next year, because I look at it as you have another. You had a really good, a legit post player with Alexus Dye this year, but again, kind of undersized a little bit. Rickea is not undersized, and she's already played in the SEC, for 3 seasons, so she has SEC experience and a lot of it. She's a player who I think can really change the makeup of the team next year, because you're losing Ray Burrell as a scorer. You have Rickea you can add in there. It takes some of the pressure off Jordan Horston, so she doesn't have to be a do-it-all, because you have someone else who is a good rebounder you're bringing in to do these things, and it's about the same size as Jordan Horston pretty much too. So I want to hear your thoughts about Rickea, because I think I don't think it can be talked about enough about how big of an addition this is for next year's roster.
She was the crown jewel of the transfer portal. Now more are going in. We're at that time of year where more are going in, but to say that I don't care who else goes in, she's one of the top 3 players who would have been in the transfer portal right away. I mean, right as of yesterday, she's number 1 player that everybody wanted. And when she entered it, I would imagine her poor phone or her mother's phone probably just exploded. She was very low key. Mm-hmm. She would post a little bit on social media, but she made sure to hashtag everything not committed yet. She didn't say much at all on social media about anything. She visited Tennessee first, of course. She was here for that LSU game. Then she went to Texas. And then she went to LSU. That was just last weekend when they played in the NCAA Tournament. Mm-hmm. I think initially the thought was that Texas would be the front runner, because she committed to Mississippi State and played for Vic Schaefer. Yep. 1 season. Then, of course, he goes to Texas. And then Nikki McRae-Penson gets the job. She has to step down for health reasons. Now that's her second coach. Then Doug Novak gets the job as interim. That's her third coach. And I think she was looking for a stable situation, a climate and a culture that she felt more comfortable in, where she fit in. It's very big to her, camaraderie with teammates and locker room chemistry and team chemistry. And that's tricky with every team. And sometimes it can just go awry. And clearly it was not working out for her at Mississippi State. The rumbling started in the last week that she was leaning towards Tennessee, and but recruiting is like chasing snowflakes to get accurate information. And so you're waiting and waiting, because I believe it when the player says it. One, if I knew it confirmed, I'm not stealing any player's thunder. Mm-hmm. I was aware that this was likely to happen, but you still want to hear the players say it and make it, because you can have a last. I mean, everybody thought Coach Yo was leaving Ole Miss for Georgia, and she had a last minute pivot on that. So you don't jump until you know. And as soon as she put that, I think it was about 2:00 this afternoon. I mean, social media exploded because I think it surprised a lot of Tennessee fans. They did not see it coming. And
I happened to be just on Twitter like right as it happened, or right after it happened, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe this!" Like today of all days, this happened. I was like, "This is incredible." So yeah, you're right. Like Twitter just exploded when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN wrote a story, Slam wrote a story. I mean, the Ball Out media that tracks all this, national media, everybody was aware. One broadcaster said Jordan Horston and Rickea Jackson on the same team.
Oh man,
yeah, on paper, you've got 3 first-round draft picks on Tennessee's roster next year: Tamari Key, Jordan Horston, and Rickea Jackson.
Wow.
Yeah, and now I will be curious to see. All right, how do you deal with the expectations sky high? That's a whole nother way to things to manage a team. But I mean, Kelly has been putting the building blocks in place with the players she's getting, the types of players she's getting, the competitive nature of players she's getting. But the one word I used, that I was talking to the Ball Out later after it happened, was seismic. This is a seismic shift for Lady Vol basketball, because everybody knows Kelly can coach. Her coaching acumen is absolutely not in question by anybody who watches games and sees her and watches how she had. I mean, even the Belmont coach said for her to reinvent her team twice this season and still get here. I mean, you tell me any other team that lost its leading scorer, rebounder, assist leader, and steals with a week and a half to go in the regular season. A lot of teams don't bounce back from that. I mean, imagine some of the top teams in the Sweet 16 now without their leading scorer. Where would they be? Mm-hmm. In a world of hurt. So it is seismic. It also establishes, everybody was asking, can Kelly get that big recruit? I mean, now Justine Bassett is ranked 11th in the country, a 5-star, 6'4" sharpshooter. So she'd really already answered that, but people haven't seen Justine Bassett yet. They haven't seen her play in college, and she'll be a freshman next year. So you always have to be patient with freshmen. Rickea Jackson is a proven SEC player.
Yep.
She can score, she can guard, she can rebound. She's lightning quick. She's 6'2". She was the number 5 team in the country in her high school class. She and Jordan Horston are obviously the same high school class. She was the number 2 player at her wing position. The irony, too, is that she and Jordan Horston visited Tennessee together. On their official visit, they came together, and Jordan ultimately chose Tennessee, and then Rickea, of course, chose Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. She had a great relationship with Vic Schaefer. I think that was part of it, and I'm sure he was hoping. He was in the catbird seat there, but there's a difference between a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old. There's a lot of growth that happens there, and at this point, she's got time to think, all right, I've got 1 season left. What do I want? That's it. Because, I mean, she would have a COVID year, but there's absolutely no reason to take it.
Yeah, there's no reason for her to take that year. Yes, absolutely. You made a great point. Like, thinking about in that context of having 3 first-round picks, like, that's the type of roster the Lady Vols used to have. And, like, that's exciting to think about. Again, how does this team and how does Coach Harper – how do they perform under those expectations? Kelly knew it from us as a player. I think she will handle it fine. I just wonder, these players, they came to Tennessee to help get it back to this level. Now, how do they handle the pressure when they have those expectations again? Which that'd be a conversation I would love to have with you in the offseason, Maria, because, again, I don't want to keep you too long. But I think if I'm Tamari Key, like, I am very excited about the fact that I have Jazz Powell as a point guard. Probably you have Jordan Walker returning, who has played point guard for you and is capable as a point guard, but as a 2-guard / point guard. I have Jordan Horston and Rickea Jackson. Like, if I'm Tamari Key, I'm thinking, okay, good luck double teaming me, because I'm going to have all kinds of lanes to the basket now, because if you double team me, you're leaving one of these other 4 open, and that doesn't even include the bench players you have for next year, who will be all these freshmen who will be sophomores. And then, again, you have Justine Bassett coming in, who is a very, very talented, probably one of the best incoming freshmen Lady Vols have had in a while, in my opinion. So this team, again, I know it's already looking ahead next year. We're still in the middle of this, not in the middle, we're still this year, and Lady Vols have a game to go on Saturday. But Maria, it's hard not to get excited about the potential of next year's team when you look at who they're bringing in, who's coming back, and just kind of the potential of the development of this team and the chemistry. I'm hoping to be able to interview Rickea. We'll see. Again, I know, like you said, she doesn't talk on social media much. I don't know if she'll talk to the media much in general, but when I interviewed Jazz Powell here for Lady Vol Basketball Fever, she had mentioned about the culture. That was one of the huge reasons she picked Tennessee, was because of talking with Coach Harper and talking with the players. And on her visit, she's like, the culture here, the family atmosphere, just the way that they all care about each other, genuinely really spoke to her. I'm willing to bet if I get a chance to talk to Rickea, that'll be the same thing as she mentions, because it just seems like a lot of players, their prospects and stuff, have mentioned time and time again about the culture of Lady Vols and how much it is really. I mean, if you look at it where it was, not that it was a cesspool or anything like that, but look at where kind of the culture and just the perception of the Lady Vols was 3 or 4 years ago. It's vastly different now than it was then.
It's always going to be. I mean, Pat had to deal with it too. You get a lot of really good players on one roster. There's management that needs to be done. But if Kelly has put the foundation in place and established the culture and established what she wants on the court, off the court, academics, and I mean, they're college kids. I mean, I'm not going to say they're perfect angels, because I mean, it's been a long time, but I know what college kids do. Across the country, every sport, non-athletes, it's college. You're going to have some fun. So, but Kelly has established what her expectations are. And Rickea's not, she knows a lot of these players. I mean, she knows Jasmine Powell. They know each other from Michigan. She knows Jordan Walker. She knows Jordan Horston very well. They played basketball together. They've been on they've overlapped at times. So, I mean, and Jordan was in the Ohio circuit and they were in the Michigan circuit, and they played, summer AAU ball all the time. So she's not coming here not knowing the team. I remember when she was being recruited, I mean, she was a big time target. Every time she was out on the road, Holly Warlick was right there. That is somebody Tennessee wanted badly. I know Jean Lockwood was here then. They wanted her badly. She is an elite talent, and she's also a proven talent. She's not a freshman elite talent anymore. She has established she can play in the SEC. She can dominate in the SEC. So you're right. You've now reached the point you have to play Tamari straight up, and because you cannot leave those perimeter players alone. You cannot play off Jordan Horston. You cannot play off Rickea Jackson.
Nope.
Exactly. Jordan Walker has proven she can get to the paint and score. I mean, Jasmine Powell is somebody who can shoot threes too. And she's she's a pure point guard. She's an outstanding passer. She can drive and kick. I mean, you close in on her, she's going to find this. Somebody's going to be open. Somebody's going to be wide open. Now you get a player like Justine Passat, get her acclimated, get her some minutes like Kelly did these freshmen. I mean, if she really has range to 25 feet, she's going to find the floor. I mean,
oh yeah.
So it all has to come together, and light candles all summer, Lady Vol fans. The injury gods are much kinder to you next season than they were this season, because this was a brutal year of injuries.
Or what really just how they've been all of Kelly's 3 years here. Like, please, can we have a healthy season for Kelly Harper at Tennessee, please? But Maria, I've already kept you a little longer than I've been to, so I will let you go. Again, please. I know everyone listening knows who you are and knows where to find your stuff, but plug some things. I know you have stuff on Rickea, you have stuff on the Sweet 16, so let our listeners know or viewers know what you have in the on 247 and kind of what you have coming up too.
Yeah, GoVols247. You can find all my stories there. There's a very active message board there if you want to be a subscriber. We talk a lot there. Obviously, that's where news like this gets first, because as soon as I hit publish, it pops there and people get notifications, and there it is. I think she committed at 2, and I think my story published at 2:03. So all I had to do was just take the hold off, change the date. There's a sneaky way in any back system that you can date it to like 2026. So let's say it accidentally got published, it would not show up for 4 years. So you have to go back into the system and let it know that it's really 2022. So it's one of my fail-safe methods of never preempting anybody by what I think is going to happen, and let players have their moment. So you can find me there. Obviously, wrote a book about Pat the final season. That's at various online spots. Apparently, I was on WBIR at 6 tonight. I have not seen it myself. They came out to my house. I was working from home. They took some pictures of my memorabilia, like you see behind me, and did interviews about getting to the Sweet 16 and Kelly and Pat. So I'll have to look for it later, but maybe it'll rerun at 11. So I know that's out there too.
Well, yeah, be sure to send me some clips of that, and I'll tweet it out or retweet it if you post it onto the Vol Basketball Fever Twitter handle too. So absolutely, yo, check out Maria's work. And again, Lady Vols, 4:00 Eastern on Saturday against Louisville on ESPN2. Be sure to watch. I mean, everyone listening to this is going to be watching, I know, but I'm very excited about that game. But thank you all so much again for watching/listening. Again, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and subscribe to the podcast as well. Big thank you to Maria for joining me on this episode. Big thank you to all the guests I've had so far this year on Lady Vol Basketball Fever. And a big thank you to all of you for listening and watching. Signing off for Maria, I am Nathaniel, and this has been another episode of the Lady Vol Basketball Fever podcast.